Good evening, greetings everyone, and thank you for joining us on He Spoke Fashion. Listen, I'm your host, Daylon Thomas, and this evening, I would like to share my reflections on, guess what? The BET Awards that aired on Monday night of this week. Now, for those who watched, it was evident that the show has regained much of its former glory with performances and fashion that met our expectations. Now, it has been some time since the BET Awards, in my humble opinion, reached such heights of success. But this occasion felt distinctly different. Now, from the captivating performances to the stylish ensembles and even the poignant speeches addressing contemporary challenges, everything resonated with the appropriate tone and the appropriate sentiment. Now, regardless of one's agreement with the viewpoints articulated during those speeches, it was commendable that BET provided a platform for freedom of expression, allowing individuals to voice their opinions. Now, I commend Kevin Hart for the professionalism and the appropriateness of his attire as the host for the evening, despite not having watched the program in its entirety. Now, his tuxedo reflected a genuine respect for the occasion and emphasized its significance to him. Now, in contrast, previous hosts have occasionally left viewers questioning their appreciation for the opportunity, often due to their less than appropriate fashion choices. Now, I would like to say that Kevin's choice of attire set a high standard for elegance and sophistication, underscoring his dedication to honoring the tradition of the BET Awards. Now, his presence and charisma brought an infectious energy to the event, bridging the gap between comedy and reverence. And it's refreshing to see a host who not only entertains, but also respects the cultural and historic importance of the evening. Now, Kevin's role as host was undoubtedly one of the evening's highlights, but it was not the only memorable moment. Now, Teyana Taylor delivered a captivating performance that seamlessly combined elements of fire and futurism, offering a preview of her upcoming film, Escape Room. I'll be watching out for it. Additionally, Mariah Carey took to the stage to debut her new single, Type Dangerous, while also performing a medley of her classic hits. Now, guys, another standout was Glorilla, who surprised the audience with a more subdued wardrobe, which, I found it quite striking, if you ask me. Now, her performance featured a stylized kitchen set and included an unexpected duet with one of my favorites, none other than Keisha Cole. And that resonated profoundly with the audience. Now, the evening culminated with a powerful performance by none other than Kirk Franklin, the recipient of the Ultimate Icon Award. Now, guys, Kirk, surprisingly enough, was not accompanied by any prominent gospel artists, but shared the stage with Tamar Braxton, Jamal Roberts, Muni Long, and even Salt from Salt and Pepper. Melodies from heaven, rain down on me, rain down on me. What, like Kanye's version better? Oh, it's this guy. Listen. Now, after viewing this performance, I had numerous reflections. However, before formulating my own conclusions, I decided to peruse the comment section, as is my usual practice, and I'm sure it is for some of you. Now, I was not surprised by the responses I encountered. Now, several individuals expressed enjoyment of the performance, similar to these commenters who shared their thoughts, like this one. This commenter says, "Yes, Kirk, your performance was everything. Amen." All right. Now, another commenter said, "He brought that real church back." Okay. You know what that means, all right? This other commenter said, "Now, Kirk Franklin made an huge impact on the music culture, Gospel music helped many people, including myself, push through so much pain, struggles, hardships, and sufferings in life. Very inspiring and motivating to keep on believing and have faith on God. Okay, this is what that commenter said. That's their personal testimony. Now, this commenter said, I did like the gospel music. However, I think it should be on a separate platform. Okay, let's hear from another commenter. Now, this commenter says, trust no one. Anyone can sing a gospel song. These people need to be honest with themselves. Okay, he says anyone can sing gospel. Or would you say make a joyful noise? All right, let's look at another comment. This commenter says, ain't nobody trying to hear Tamar sing gospel after she done beat Lonnie. I'm sorry. She done beat Lonnie upside the head and told everybody at the church. that person was a little funny there. But others believe, now that was some commenters, right? But others believe that Kirk Franklin may not adequately represent gospel music, citing various factors as the basis for their concerns. Like this commenter says, now I'm 64, and this till the point can I actually see some old-fashioned church music. Over the last 25 to 30 years, it's ridiculous. It's hip-hop music blended in with gospel music. Hated. Too much dancing, too much bouncing all over the place, too ghetto. Kirk Franklin tired of just looking at you dancing and talking. Man, you ain't never sung a song yet. Ever. All right. Why don't you tell them how you really feel? Now, this commenter says, it seems to take a more serious tone here. Can't tell saved from unsaved anymore. God's people are no longer separated. And it's sad. Wow. Now, this commenter said, gospel? Wow. They didn't just blur the lines, they obliterated the line. Now, guys, that sounds like an indictment if I ever heard one. Now, my question to you is that accurate? Do you think Kirk Franklin and others have mixed things up so much that the line is now a complete vanishing act? Let me hear from you in the comment section. I'll be checking because I want to hear what you think about this. Let's continue. Now, this comment encapsulates the core of what I wish to address this evening. This comment says, let's talk about Kirk, shirtless, Jamal, shirtless, Tamar, super cleavage, choir, women wearing suits, looking more and more like Corinthians than gospel. Now, guys, get this. This comment is a perfect segue into our topic of discussion tonight, entitled Kirk Franklin's performance at the BET Awards is proof gospel music as we once knew it is dead. Okay, guys, I know that's heavy. And so before we proceed, AB, please do me a favor and share our disclaimer, all right? All right, guys, you read that disclaimer? Let's continue. Now, this reference to the Corinthian church is paramount to our discussion. Therefore, let's take a moment to explain what this means for those that may not understand this reference. Again, for those who are unfamiliar with the Corinthian church. Now, the Corinthian church was known for its spiritual gifts. It was charismatic. They had charismatic gatherings and zeals, but it also struggled with division, sexual immorality, status seeking, and worldly influence. Now Paul's letters, especially 1 Corinthians, address problems, and these problems such as showmanship in worship. Now, he also addressed immorality being tolerated in the church. And there were often times when the Apostle Paul addressed the issue of confusion over leadership and authority. And then there was this problem that I am certain that some might argue today is indeed evident in the black church, and that is the culture. They had a culture that prized performance over holiness. God help us. Nonetheless, many black churches have historically served as powerful centers for spiritual life, for community strength, and even for social justice. However, contemporary trends reveal striking parallels to the issues faced by the Corinthian church. For instance, while the Corinthian church emphasized spectacles, certain black church services can come across as performance-driven, prioritizing emotional excitement over spiritual depth. Additionally, whereas the Corinthians fostered a culture of status-seeking and celebrity, now some leaders within the black church are elevated to celebrity status rather than embodying the role, get this, of servant leaders. Now I want you to consider this question. Does your pastor maintain a personal brand, a stylist, or a social media manager? So if so, your community, I'm going to just say this, and I know it may seem harsh, but your community may be leaning toward a culture reminiscent of that in Corinth. Moreover, the Corinthian church tolerated immorality. And similarly, there appears to be a reluctance within the black church to address sin, often stemming from concerns about losing membership or even cultural relevance. Now, let's be clear. You get that? Actions once universally recognized as sinful are no longer labeled as such. I digress, but this reality is evident. Lastly, the Corinthian church, it integrated secular values into its teachings, a trend that is also evident among some contemporary preachers within the black church. Their messages, if you're listening, if you're paying attention, occasionally mirror motivational speaking more than authentic biblical instruction, reflecting a broader phenomenon of secularization in worship and in culture. Now, guys, if we are being 100% honest with ourselves, it is apparent that cultural norms surrounding fashion, relationships, gender, and authority have increasingly influenced the church rather than vice versa. Let's continue. Now, guys, listen, the pertinent question is, hear me close, whether the evolution of gospel music influenced the transformations within the black church, or if conversely, the changes within the black church prompted the evolution of gospel music. Let's go deeper, shall we? Now, when we look at gospel music, we can trace throughout history how there were subtle changes in the gospel music arena. There were those like Thomas A. Dorsey, who is recognized as the father of gospel music, who introduced blues and jazz styles into church music. Now, early gospel was considered scandalously secular because Dorsey himself was a former blues musician. Now, to his credit, Dorsey legitimized the emotional and ministerial expressions of the gospel music. And you know what, guys? Not only that, the musical expression of black life in the church was also something that Thomas Dorsey was able to do, but also that opened the door to further stylistic shifts. So that was his credit. But also, it shifted something in gospel music. Then there was also James Cleveland, Reverend James Cleveland, who created a fusion of choir, soul, and R&B elements. Now, many critics of James Cleveland said his style was too showy or commercial. Now that is important as we gauge how gospel music may have influenced the transitions of the black church. Now, there was also the emergence of gospel music legend Edwin Hawkins. Now, Edwin Hawkins' song, "Oh Happy Day, Oh Happy Day, Oh Happy Day, oh when Jesus was, oh when he washed my sins away. Hey, that was a happy day." But that song, "Oh Happy Day," was pivotal in bringing gospel music into the mainstream, get this, pop charts. Bet you didn't know that. Now, despite its success, many churches initially rejected the song for its secular sound. The gospel genre, marking a watershed moment in which gospel music gained, get this, crossover appeal. Now, this shift prompted the church to embrace a more polished, pop-influenced sound. Now, we already have the blues, now we have more commercial, and now we have even a pop-sounding gospel. Now, as we progress through this segment of our presentation, I encourage you to reflect on my earlier question. The question should be here. Now, in my humble opinion, it seems that the transitions within the black church were significantly influenced by the evolution of gospel music. So let's continue. Now, there was a group who many have been recognized as significant contributors to the evolution of gospel music, further facilitating its transition into contemporary realms. And that group is none other than one of my favorites, the Clark Sisters. Now, guys, their style, particularly the musical arrangements, has sometimes been deemed excessively worldly. Now, the Clark Sisters are credited with influencing artists such as Beyonce and Mary J. Blige, playing a significant role in integrating gospel music with mainstream production standards. Now, many may remember the controversy surrounding Beyonce's recent rendition of a Clark Sisters hit, which she entitled "Church Girl." Now, guys, this song was promoted as a fusion of R&B, gospel, Chicago hip-hop, and Southern hip-hop. However, given these lyrics, AB, can you put the lyrics on the screen full mass? It says, "I'll drop it like a thotty. Drop it like a thotty." I said, now pop it like a thotty. Pop it like a thotty. Guys. Now, you guys said that's a church. Listen, I am uncertain, however, whether this imagery aligns with the intentions of the Clark Sisters when they recorded the track "Center of Thy Will." Now, lastly, Kirk Franklin, who is a pioneer in the gospel genre, was once again honored with the Ultimate Icon Award at this year's BET Awards. Now, he is credited with integrating hip-hop, R&B, and even trap beats into gospel music. I can't make this up. Now, Franklin faced criticism for his use of secular rhythms and beats, leading some churches to ban his music. Now, his intent to make gospel music accessible to mainstream youth culture has undeniably transformed the genre, elevating it to a level that may expose it, in my humble opinion, to influences from those who neither appreciate its historical significance nor uphold the spiritual message it conveys. Now, while this perspective may spark controversy, it merits further exploration. Now, each of these pioneers pushed gospel forward, but also made the church rethink where the line between the sacred and the secular lies. But others, ladies and gentlemen, feared it as erosion. Now, since the revolution, do you want a revolution? But listen, since the revolution initiated by Kirk Franklin, one that I regard as a true revolution rather than mere evolution, gospel music has descended into an abyss from which it may struggle to emerge. Now, in my view, Franklin's album introduced a level of secularism that, influenced by his personal ideals regarding the sanctity of gospel music, led to a dilution of its sacred essence. Now, I believe that many contemporary gospel artists have entered this genre not necessarily due to their love for the gospel, but rather because they could not succeed in the hip-hop or R&B sectors while still aspiring to establish a music career. I said it, and I ain't taking it back. Now, regardless of how impressive we may perceive certain gospel artists to be, the stark reality is that many, not all, but many would not thrive in those secular arenas. Frankly, the standards we uphold within the gospel music industry are alarmingly low. For example, many gospel artists who have managed to maintain their presence in the industry have consistently lowered their standards. In secular arenas, their careers would likely have ended long ago. You're talking about 5 minutes of fame, as there is always someone poised to take advantage of any misstep. Now, it is imperative to continually produce quality work and protect one's brand. But compromising your brand ultimately jeopardizes the investments made in your career. Now, regardless of talent or gifting, a certain standard must be upheld. However, some artists seem unrestrained, engaging in public misconduct and using profanity without fear of career repercussions or damaging the reputation of the Christian community. Now, guys, listen, I ain't picking on anybody, but if the shoe fits, we must wear it. And so, I'm not picking on anyone, but if the shoe fits, we have to wear it. Now, the current fashion choices of gospel artists significantly differ from those seen in the hip-hop and R&B genres. However, this disparity does not deter individuals in the gospel music industry who secretly aspire to the fame and fortune associated with these genres from attempting to emulate their style. Now, Kirk Franklin's wardrobe in particular has sparked considerable discussion over the past few years. You know, it remains uncertain whether this shift in his attire is a result of a midlife crisis or a reflection of his commitment to fitness. I get it, Kirk. You're going to pull out the guns. Nevertheless, it suggests a departure from the traditional sanctity of gospel music. Now, guys, hear me close. The incorporation of dance routines and distinctive clothing has even become a subject of humor for secular artists and comedians. And as an illustration, one only needs to consider Kevin Hart's commentary on the matter. Kevin Hart served as host for the evening. Wouldn't you agree? What's that, Grogu? Oh, you like Kevin Hart too? Okay, that's good. What'd you say? Oh, you like Kevin Hart because you and he are about the same height. That's what you think, Grogu. I don't know about this one, my friend. I don't know about this one. He may be a tad bit taller, Grogu. Moving on. Many of us noticed Kirk's facial expressions at the beginning, which many recognize as one of disdain. Now, this expression suggested that he may have felt himself to be beyond reproach. Now, Hart's comedic approach seemed to unsettle Kirk, highlighting an uncomfortable dynamic. Interestingly enough, within the gospel music industry, there is a prevailing sentiment that accountability for their actions primarily comes from within the church community. However, Kevin Hart's commentary suggests that this perspective may not be entirely accurate. There is a growing perception that standards have been lowered not only in gospel music, but also within the Black church. Now, the fashion trends associated with both gospel music and the Black church have diminished to a degree where the distinction between club attire and church attire has become increasingly blurred. Who then is responsible for the blurring of boundaries in gospel music? Now, the answer was evident, in my humble opinion, during Kirk Franklin's performance at the BET Awards. Now, guys, in the times past, gospel performances at such award shows typically featured only gospel artists. It would not have been unusual for Kirk Franklin to share the stage with artists like Kiara Sheard or Karen Clark Sheard, Yolanda Adams, Fred Hammond, and even Donnie McClurkin. However, this time he was accompanied by artists from the pop and R&B genres, as well as the recent winner from this year's American Idol. Now, guys, this shift not only reflects the gospel music industry's own erosion of boundaries, but also signifies the complicity of the Black church in this trend. Now, in my humble opinion, this indicates that gospel music as we once knew it is dead. And who is to blame for its demise? Who would you say? Well, guys, in my opinion, Kirk Franklin is one of the key figures. Now, he has allowed what was once considered sacred to be appropriated by secular artists who may not recognize its sanctity, using it instead as simply a way to advance their careers. Now, while it is not to suggest that these artists do not believe in God or Christians, some appear willing to gain worldly success at the expense of their spiritual integrity. Ironically, those who have contributed to the dilution of gospel music boundaries now express discontent. The nerve of these people with this current trajectory. Let's watch.
The music industry needs an overhaul, period. After last night's show, it's an indicator that we just need a complete reset. Like what are we doing? Are we allowing this to happen over and over again and wonder why the gospel music industry is dying? Come on, man. In order to have something different, you have to do something different. So we need people in the room that know gospel music, that's in the trenches of gospel music, that's advocating for the genre as a whole and not one particular person. It's already a small genre. So it's hard for us to watch the Dr. Bobby Jones Gospel Award being given to somebody that's not in our space, right? No disrespect to the artist, but that's not the space she's in. And so it makes it discouraging, disappointing, and it takes the wind out of all of it. And we wonder why gospel music is dying. It's because we're doing things like that. Well, on top of that is, we're tired, nobody will say this, but I will, of seeing the same people being celebrated year after year. Like there is nobody else in gospel music. Like no one else is working. You cannot just give it to one person as if they're the ones that's keeping it going. No. We're done with that. Last night was a great win for the ratings for BT. I give certain people awards for ratings, but it was not a win for the gospel music industry. We got to do better. So I propose let's start something where we can come together and have someone advocating for the genre that have no other motive and agenda in the room, but to elevate the gospel music genre as a whole. That's what I feel. The gospel music.
Wow. Did you guys watch that? I mean, Diedrich Haddon is claiming, quit your crying now, son. Quit your crying now. Who's to blame? It is essential to recognize that he played and others played a significant role in this transformation. And in doing so, get this, they may have inadvertently marginalized their own relevance in the music industry. In other words, you may have cost yourself your job. Did you get that? The issue that Diedrich Haddon is currently facing stems from his own contributions to his ongoing argument. Now, it is crucial for us to comprehend this context, and I would like to emphasize the significance of understanding this perspective with this quote. Quote, when you stay silent about what's wrong just because it benefits you, you're not protecting your future, you're sabotaging it. Did you get that? What you tolerate today, can you put that back up there, AB? Because what you tolerate today may turn against you tomorrow. That's my own quote. Guys, let me tell you a story. This may help. Story time, baby. Yeah. All right. Now, guys, Malik Jordan, who we're going to call him for the sake of him remaining, or the person in the story remaining anonymous. But Malik Jordan grew up in the church. Guys, his mother led the choir. His father was a deacon. And by the age of 14, Malik was already writing gospel songs. Guys, gospel songs that made even grown men cry. He had what we call the anointing, that special touch that made people feel heaven open. But when Malik got older and started performing professionally, he began to see gospel not as a ministry, but as a stepping stone. Now, he felt confined by the church and wanted more stages, more lights, more followers. So he made a decision. I'm not a gospel artist. I'm an artist who happens to sing gospel. His wardrobe changed, his lyrics softened. He dropped the name Jesus from most of his songs and replaced it with vague spiritual references like the light or the love. Now, soon his music was playing in clubs, coffee shops, and mainstream playlists. And major media started calling him the crossover king of gospel. But while his career soared, something subtle began to happen. Event planners and label executives began to say, if gospel doesn't have to be sacred anymore, then we don't need gospel artists who grew up in church. We just need people who can sing gospel sounding music. Now, slowly the doors that were once reserved for people with deep roots in the faith began opening to secular R&B singers, studio performers, and influencers who had never set foot in a choir loft. Now, Malik was booked less for spiritual settings and more for brand-sponsored events. He found himself on lineups with artists who mocked faith yet mimicked the gospel sound, and the industry shifted. Choir directors were replaced with choreographers. Prayer rooms were replaced with green rooms. Now, he had helped create the trend, and now it was moving without him. At a major award show, Malik watched as a well-known pop artist or hip-hop artist won Best Inspirational Song for a track that sounded gospel but had no spiritual depth. She got the standing ovation. Malik clapped too, but inside he felt hollow. Now that night, he remembered something his mother once told him. This was, when you take the sacred out of gospel, all you're left with is sound. And sound can be copied, but the spirit can't. Guys, the moral of the story is this. When we devalue the sacredness of gospel music, we may gain temporary applause, but lose the spiritual authority that made it powerful. In doing so, we risk creating a space where the industry thrives, but the ministry dies. And in that vacuum, others step in to perform what once was lived. Guys, now we should not direct our frustration towards those who capitalize on the opportunities we created. We shouldn't be mad at Glorilla. Instead, we must take responsibility for the cultural shifts that may have diminished gospel music as we once recognized it. Now, guys, each of us played, me, you, and everyone played a role in this evolution, whether through purchasing the music, attending concerts, singing it in our churches, or defending contemporary interpretations over traditional ones. Now, is it possible that gospel music is not truly dead? Certainly it is. However, if it remains alive, What actions are you prepared to take to sustain it? Now, guys, I want to offer you and issue you this challenge. I challenge those who believe in the potential to revive gospel music as we once knew it. I want you to move beyond discussion and actively engage in efforts to bring about that revival. In other words, don't talk about it, be about it. All right? Family, listen. We have now come to the end of the show, and I appreciate you for continuing to rock with He Spoke Fashion. Guys, I really enjoyed you all, and I hope that you enjoyed this show as well. Now, guys, if you like this content, please do me a favor, hit the like button. It's free. And then share this with someone else, someone who loves gospel music. Now, let me know what you think about this topic in the comments. All right? That's all I have for you tonight. I want you to have a good night, good fashion, and remember, He spoke fashion to you. See you next time. Hope you'll be back to join us. All right? Yeah! In the building! I like it.